The 10 largest cities in the ancient world. Rome barely makes it to number 8. Alexandria claims the 5th spot, and the city at number 1 held the title of humanity's greatest metropolis for 860 years across the long arc of human history. Civilization has produced cities of staggering scale and ambition. They were not merely places to live. They were arenas of power and culture, where dreams and dynasties were forged. Archaeological research has revealed that thousands of ancient cities once existed across the globe, some rivaling modern metropolises in sheer physical scale, with populations in the hundreds of thousands or beyond 1 million. Today, the world's urban population stands at 56%, a remarkable figure. Yet these ancient cities achieved something comparable thousands of years before modern infrastructure ever existed. Join us as we count down the 10 largest cities the ancient world ever produced. When the name Baghdad is spoken, the mind conjures yellowed manuscripts and gilded palaces, a canvas of glory woven through with suffering. Baghdad is more than Iraq's capital. It rose from bare earth, was raised, and rose again, writing its legend in resilience time after time. The story begins in the year 762. The Abbasid Caliph Al-Mansur, ruler of a vast and ambitious empire, set out to build an entirely new capital city. He chose a flat expanse along the Tigris River and ordered a city of unprecedented design, circular, perfectly symmetrical, and named Baghdad. Its architecture was extraordinarily deliberate. Concentric rings of walls provided layered defense, while at the very center stood the Caliph's palace and the Grand Mosque, twin symbols of absolute power and faith. At its peak, Baghdad's population surpassed 1 million, making it the largest and most prosperous city on earth. But Baghdad's greatness was never purely architectural. Its deeper glory lay in the life of the mind. At its heart stood the legendary House of Wisdom, a vast institution combining library, translation bureau, and research academy under one roof. Scholars converged here from Greece and Persia, from India and the Arab world, generating breakthroughs that changed history. Astronomers refined the celestial charts, mathematicians formalized algebra, and physicians laid groundwork that modern medicine still rests upon. You have almost certainly read 1001 Nights. Many of those timeless stories are set within Baghdad's golden streets, painting the city as a place of wonder and enchantment. That is not mere fantasy. It is history's tribute to Baghdad's extraordinary cultural reach, yet glory, as always, proved fragile. Catastrophe has a way of arriving uninvited. In 1258, the Mongol armies arrived at the city's gates, and Baghdad faced the darkest chapter in its history. Accounts tell of priceless manuscripts hurled by the thousands into the Tigris, its waters said to have run black with ink. Perhaps some exaggeration colors that image, yet it captures perfectly the scale of the catastrophe. A civilization's heartbeat was silenced overnight. Hundreds of thousands of its people were massacred. Baghdad never fully recovered its former glory. Yet history has never managed to extinguish this city. Blow after blow, it refuses to fall. In the early 20th century, Iraq won its independence, and Baghdad reasserted itself as the pulse of Arab culture. But modern warfare cast its shadow once more. In 2003, a U.S.-led military campaign struck another devastating blow. Infrastructure was shattered across the city. Irreplaceable cultural heritage was lost. Still, Baghdad refused to surrender. The city endured. Since the defeat of extremist forces in 2017, terrorist attacks have fallen dramatically, and civilian life has gradually resumed. Today, Baghdad is home to 7.6 million people, representing 22% of Iraq's entire population. Modernization has been slow and uneven. Yet, the city pulses with unmistakable life. Ancient mosques stand beside modern malls and cafes, past and future occupying the same breathing space. Baghdad's story carries a single, enduring truth. Even when disaster seems total, as long as life persists, the future remains. Constantinople, the very name, carries the weight of empire and the gleam of epic history. From ancient Rome to Byzantium, and then to the Ottoman Empire, this city straddling Europe and Asia was the spine of the medieval world. it was never just a city. It was the embodiment of wealth, faith, power, and the ceaseless rhythm of conquest. In 330 AD, the Emperor Constantine the Great made a decisive choice to abandon aging Rome and establish a new capital at the small town of Byzantium, naming it after himself. Constantine was clearly a master of geography. Constantinople sat at the Bosphorus Strait's most strategic choke point, commanding both the Black Sea to the north and the Mediterranean to the south, with the eastern and western trade routes converging at its gates almost immediately after its founding. Constantinople grew into one of the world's premier trading hubs and a formidable military fortress. Silk, spices, and precious stones poured through its markets in a constant, dazzling flood, and by the late 4th century, the population neared 400,000 across the whole of medieval Europe. Constantinople stood supreme, the city they called the New Rome, beyond its unrivaled location. It was home to engineering marvels that stunned the ancient world. The Hagia Sophia, completed in 537 AD, its vast dome soaring heavenward, represented the absolute peak of Byzantine faith and architecture. Then there were the legendary city walls, 3 concentric layers of stone that repelled invader after invader across the centuries, keeping the city safe long after lesser fortifications had crumbled. But in 1453, the walls finally fell. Sultan Mehmed II of the Ottoman Empire arrived with an army of 170,000 soldiers, armed with the most advanced cannons of the age. After 2 full months of siege, the 1,000-year city was taken. The Byzantine Empire ceased to exist. Mehmed entered in triumph. The Hagia Sophia was converted into a mosque, and Constantinople became the new capital of the Ottoman world. In 1930, the Turkish Republic officially renamed the city Istanbul, marking a formal farewell to ancient tradition and the birth of a modern national identity. Today's Istanbul is Turkey's largest and most vibrant city, home to over 15 million people. It generates roughly 35% of Turkey's industrial output, 40% of its tax revenues, and 55% of its trade, a true economic engine. Walk its streets and you encounter Byzantine ruins beside Ottoman mosques and soaring glass towers. A bridge spanning more than 1,000 years of human story still stands, telling the world's oldest tale. And what comes next for Istanbul may prove as brilliant as everything that came before. When most people think of Rome, they might picture Audrey Hepburn at the Spanish Steps in Roman Holiday. From the legend of the she-wolf nursing twin founders to the romantic labyrinth it is today, Rome, the eternal city, has carried the centuries with uncommon grace. It is a living epic that never ends. As early as the 1st century BC, Rome had already become the undisputed center of the Mediterranean world. With a population exceeding 1 million, it was the first ancient city to achieve that scale. In an age when agriculture defined civilization, Rome's rise was driven not only by military conquest, but by an extraordinary capacity to absorb and govern. Rome's diversity was breathtaking. From Etruscans and Greeks to Celtic peoples, Rome absorbed the wisdom and technology of every civilization it touched. It borrowed philosophy from Greece, architecture and engineering from Egypt, and became the earliest embodiment of human globalization. Behind Rome's greatness stood a series of engineering feats without precedent. The Colosseum was not merely an entertainment venue. It was a declaration of imperial supremacy. The Pantheon's dome remains a masterwork of architectural history, while a vast aqueduct network delivered clean water ceaselessly to every corner of the city, feeding public baths for millions. The Great Fire of 64 AD consumed half the city and became the event most closely tied to Emperor Nero's infamy. Whether he truly fiddled while Rome burned remains debated, but what is beyond dispute is that the city's reconstruction that followed represented a dramatic upgrade in urban planning. Grander buildings arose from the ash. Wider boulevards replaced the old lanes, and Nero's Golden Palace rose as a monument to imperial excess. As empire eventually faded, Rome's grandeur dimmed but never disappeared. History refused to let it be forgotten. Through the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, Rome once again became the center of art and devotion. Raphael and Michelangelo created their greatest works within its walls, and St. Peter's Basilica announced the Church's absolute spiritual authority. As the seat of the Catholic world, Rome contains over 700 churches, each one a frozen moment in time, whispering its religious and artistic history. Vatican City, though a sovereign nation, exists in symbiosis with Rome, serving as the spiritual home of 1 billion believers. Today's Rome no longer commands an empire, but its stature remains immense. People call it a living museum of history. It belongs equally to the past and the future. Perhaps it is best captured in a line from Roman holiday itself: Rome, I will cherish my visit here, in memory as long as I live. To say the name Xi'an is to step into the long corridor of history itself. This is a city time has favored above most. Once known as Chang'an, eternal peace, a super metropolis in the truest sense, and one of Chinese civilization's greatest foundations in the age of legend. The land around Xi'an was already fertile with myth and meaning. Lantian man lit his first fires here, while the brilliant pottery of the Yangshao culture brought early brilliance to this ancient land. Even the myth of Nuwa mending the sky echoes through this region's memory. By the time of the Zhou dynasty, King Wen's capital Fengjing and King Wu's Haojing rose here, and the embryo of Chang'an began to take shape. The rites and music of Zhou culture took root, opening the defining prologue of Chinese civilization. But Chang'an's true apex arrived with the Tang dynasty. Chang'an was the most populous city on Earth, home to roughly 800,000 registered residents, alongside 1.3 to 1.5 million more ethnic minorities, foreign merchants, and temporary residents. The poet once wrote of 1 million households filling the city, wondering whose flute drifted on the night air. The great eastern and western markets functioned like the modern city's CBD, drawing merchants from Central Asia, Persia, and Arabia. The poet Li Bai wrote that Chang'an's great roads reached the very heavens. Bai Juyi, in turn, compared its 1,000 streets to a chessboard, and its 12 avenues to rows of garden beds, orderly and magnificent beyond compare. Pipa music mingled with foreign dance, poetry rang alongside Buddhist sutras. This city carried the world's imagination, you might even say. Chang'an was the ancient world's greatest globalized city. So, just how large was it exactly? Archaeologists have determined that Chang'an covered over 87 square kilometers, 6 times the size of ancient Rome, and 7 times that of Constantinople. Walking through modern Xi'an today, history's weight is inescapable. The bell tower, the ancient city walls, the wild goose pagoda, the forest of stone steels, each ruin speaks without needing words. Yet Xi'an is not imprisoned in its past. It strides confidently into the future. Today, it is a vital hub for Chinese science, industry, and culture, home to an aerospace industry zone and a major electrical district, demonstrating the force of modern manufacturing. And in its food stalls, Royamo pork sandwiches, cold noodles, and lamb soup have become pilgrimages for food lovers worldwide, adding warmth and flavor to this ancient city's identity. In every way, Xi'an is an open book. Every page carries the currents of history and human ingenuity, from the footprints of Lantian man, through the splendor of Han and Tang to the energy of modern China. This city has never stopped standing, across the long sweep of the centuries, along the gentle curves of the Ganges. Once stood a city called Pataliputra, the beating heart of the Indian subcontinent. Its story began with a modest fortress, but history had far grander plans. Around 490 BC, King Ajatashatru transformed it into the capital of Magadha, and through the Maurya and Gupta empires that followed, it became both a seat of power and a crucible of culture. At the height of the Maurya Empire, Pataliputra had reached an awe-inspiring peak. Distributed across its vast terrain were 570 towers and 64 city gates. Could you have walked those streets 2,000 years ago? You would have been struck by its brilliant urban order and the roar of its thriving markets. Spices, ivory, and rare silks changed hands in an endless river of commerce. As if the wealth of the entire ancient world flowed to the Ganges. As the political and cultural capital of ancient South Asia, Pataliputra was not merely a hub of governance. It was a crucible where ideas collided. Buddhist monks chanted their sutras in its halls, and the Emperor Ashoka of the Maurya dynasty carved stone edicts, spreading his philosophy of governance and Buddhist teaching. Pataliputra was never isolated from the broader world. Greek settlers from Bactria cast curious eyes upon this great city, and what began as a foreign intrusion turned instead into an encounter. East and west striking sparks off each other within these walls, but no walls hold back time. Even the mightiest foundations erode as dynasties turned. Pataliputra's brilliance slowly dimmed. The internal conflicts of the late Gupta period and the shifting of power under the Pala kings gradually buried this city beneath layers of time. When the monk Xuanzang visited in the 7th century AD, his account captured a city still possessed of haunting, solitary beauty, yet unmistakably touched by decline. Now consider modern Patna. It cannot recapture Pataliputra's radiance, though the Indian government is reaching deep into the soil to revive the memory buried there. Archaeologists excavate pillars and ruins, while historians attempt to assemble from the fragments a complete picture of the ancient city. But whatever is found or lost, Pataliputra's story continues to shape India and South Asia to this day. From the palace's splendor to the market's noise, from the living city to the ruins that remain, it holds its place in eternity. A testament to the cycle of power and the endurance of culture. Alexandria was the largest city on the Mediterranean coast. It was not merely the capital of the Ptolemaic dynasty, it was the living heart of ancient Greek civilization. In 331 BC, at Alexander the Great's command, this extraordinary city began to rise, carrying with it the grand vision of Hellenistic culture and the ambition to dominate the Mediterranean world. It became a metropolis that defined an entire era. The design of Alexandria was a masterstroke. Wide streets ran in a precise grid, the harbor divided into 2 zones, one for internal commerce, one for international shipping. The city held magnificent palaces, temples, and theaters. Even the width of its streets and the airflow through its quarters drew admiration from architects across the ancient world. Yet above all Alexandria's wonders, one building defines it to history: the Great Library of Alexandria. This repository of ancient knowledge is said to have held over 400,000 volumes. Legend has it that every ship arriving in the harbor was required to surrender its logs and manuscripts for the library to copy and retain. It drew the finest minds of the ancient world. Euclid worked out the geometry that still governs mathematics today. And Archimedes himself has ties to this place. It was humanity's greatest monument to curiosity. No less iconic and impossible to omit was the Lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. At over 100 meters tall, it guided sailors safely to port from miles away, its flame amplified by bronze mirrors, visible across dozens of kilometers of open sea. Inevitably, Alexandria's glory could not last forever. As Rome's power grew, the city was absorbed into the Roman world. Then, in 641 AD, Arab armies seized the city, and Alexandria's light as a beacon of knowledge began to fade, eventually yielding its primacy to Cairo. It became history's observer rather than its author. Modern Alexandria is Egypt's second city, a vital Mediterranean port still defining the coastline. Though the full glory of the Ptolemaic era is gone, a rebuilt Bibliotheca Alexandrina stands once more as a center of knowledge and culture. The site where the ancient lighthouse once blazed still draws pilgrims from across the world, drawn by a story that refuses to fade. This was once the world's center. It will always remain a landmark of civilization. Nineveh was the last great capital of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, and in the 7th century BC, one of the most magnificent cities on earth. Its name derives from the ancient Mesopotamian goddess Ishtar, symbolizing fertility and raw power. That name, it seems, was always a prophecy, a city destined for greatness and legend. Nineveh sits near modern-day Mosul in Iraq, on the eastern bank of the Tigris River. By the 11th century BC, it was already a significant Assyrian settlement, but the transformation into a world-class city came through King Sennacherib, who ruled the Assyrian Empire between the 8th and 7th centuries BC. He declared Nineveh his imperial capital and rebuilt it on an unprecedented scale. 12 kilometers of brick walls encircled the city, broken by 15 monumental gateways. Ancient historians like Diodorus recorded that crossing the city in full took 3 entire days. 2 jewels defined Nineveh's greatness: the royal library of Ashurbanipal and Sennacherib's palace. The Ashurbanipal library held over 30,000 clay tablets covered in cuneiform, recording mythology, literature, astronomy, mathematics, and medicine. This was the cultural inheritance of ancient Mesopotamia, and it is largely through these tablets that we can read the Epic of Gilgamesh today. The so-called palace without rival, Sennacherib's Great Palace, was the pinnacle of Assyrian art and architecture. Its stone walls carved with intricate relief panels depicting battle, ritual, and mythology in breathtaking detail. Laid end to end, those relief panels would stretch 3 unbroken kilometers. But in 612 BC, the empire's glory shattered. A coalition of Medes and Babylonians allied together and stormed Nineveh's walls. A city that had dazzled the world became rubble, vanishing from the pages of history. It lay buried and forgotten until archaeologists unearthed it in the 19th century. What followed brought its own tragedy. In 2014, extremist forces seized the Mosul region and carried out systematic destruction of the site, targeting Nineveh's ancient remains. With deliberate and methodical violence, the palace was dynamited. Statues were smashed. Priceless tablets and artifacts were burned. The world watched in grief and disbelief. Both the physical site and its spiritual legacy were scarred beyond quick repair. Yet the international community refused to abandon Nineveh. UNESCO has been leading the effort to restore and protect what survives, working alongside archaeologists and historians to salvage every fragment that remains. The work is agonizingly difficult, but it is one of civilization's most essential acts of recovery. Imagine traveling back several thousand years and standing on the banks of the Euphrates, stretching before you in every direction, a city of breathtaking magnificence. That city is Babylon. Babylon began as an unremarkable village, its origins traceable back to around 2334 BC. But by 1894 BC, the wheel of fate began to turn. The Amorite First Dynasty of Babylon began steering this city toward history's center stage. But it was Hammurabi in the 18th century BC who made Babylon truly immortal. He unified Mesopotamia under a single rule, and through the Code of Hammurabi, gave Babylon the legal and administrative bedrock it needed. Among the earliest written legal systems in human history, its principle of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth still echoes across the centuries. Under Hammurabi, Babylon transformed from a regional city-state into the heart of an empire. The ancient world had found a new center. At its absolute zenith, rurally between 1770 and 1670 BC, and again during the Neo-Babylonian period, it may have been the first city in history to surpass 200,000 people. Its urban footprint approached 900 hectares. Broad, organized streets ran through its heart. Palaces and temples rose on every side, bridges connecting the city's thriving districts. Massive walls and embankments surrounded it all, holding back both floodwaters and foreign armies. Within Babylon's precincts, you would find Sumerian, Akkadian, Assyrian cultures living side by side. Merchants brought spices from distant India, gold from the Nile Valley, while astronomers charted the movements of the heavens above. This was a city rich not only in wealth, but in the endless pursuit of knowledge and art. Today, Babylon's ruins lie in Iraq's Babylon province. Surviving mud brick structures, ruined walls, and ancient carvings still speak of the city's legendary past. Yet modern and recent history have not been kind. War and commercial development have inflicted irreversible damage on the site, particularly during the Iraq War of 2003, when military installations were built within its ancient boundaries. Babylon is a city carrying both humanity's hope and its regret. From its monumental architecture to its legal wisdom, from its crowded markets to its final silence, Babylon witnessed the full spectrum of civilization, its brilliance and its terrible fragility. Time's river has eroded its stones, but the name Babylon shines on through history with imperishable light. Once upon an ancient age, Thebes, spread across both banks of the Nile, was Egypt's throne of power, home of the gods, glory of the pharaohs. Its splendor was so overwhelming that Homer himself called it the City of 100 Gates. And today, We stand before it in equal awe in geographic terms. Thebes occupied a position of supreme importance, controlling the routes to Nubia and the Sinai Peninsula, while sitting directly beside the Nile's richest farmland, when the pharaoh Mentuhotep III of the 11th dynasty moved the royal capital here in the 21st century BC. This city's destiny changed irrevocably. Determined to consolidate power and honor the god Amun, the pharaohs devoted themselves to monumental construction projects. Temple complexes, royal palaces, and vast tombs rose from the earth, establishing Thebes as a city. The new kingdom of Egypt could not exist without. Thebes is defined above all by two monuments, the Temple of Karnak and the Temple of Luxor. Karnak is an enormous complex spanning 2 square kilometers, built across many generations of pharaohs. At its heart stands the sanctuary of Amun, ringed by towering hypostyle halls, obelisks, and a sacred lake. Stand among those columns, and you can almost feel the presence of ancient priests moving through sacred rituals in the half-light. The Temple of Luxor, dedicated to Amun, his consort Mut, and their son Khonsu, was the site of the Opet festival, when pharaohs would lead the god's statue from Karnak in solemn procession along the sacred avenue to Luxor for the city's greatest religious celebration. Speak of ritual and you think of the dead. Thebes was not only a city of the living, it was equally a city for those who had passed. The Valley of the Kings and Valley of the Queens, on the Nile's western bank, held the tombs of the pharaohs and queens of the new kingdom. The pharaohs believed death was merely the beginning of a greater journey. And so they filled these tombs with extraordinary painted murals, recording every step of the path to eternity. As with every great ancient city, Thebes could not escape its own decline. The end of the new kingdom brought a slow fading, as other cities gradually claimed its political inheritance. Foreign invasions and internal upheaval crumbled the city of 100 gates. What survives of ancient Thebes today lies scattered along both banks of the Nile at Luxor, inscribed by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. Between the broken stones and columns, the grandeur and mystery still breathe. If ancient Egypt is an epic written across millennia, then Memphis is its opening chapter, Egypt's first capital, the catalyst of a civilization, a legendary city written in time and desert dust. Memphis begins its story around 3100 BC, when the pharaoh Menes united Upper and Lower Egypt and chose to build a new city at the mouth of the Nile Delta, according to ancient accounts, in order to create sufficient land for this future city. Menes personally supervised the construction of a great dam, deliberately redirecting the flow of the Nile itself. Memphis rose from that act of will, bearing the full weight of Egypt's ambition. From that founding moment, Memphis became the religious and cultural core of ancient Egypt. The city's patron god, Ptah, was revered as the divine craftsman and the source of all creation. The Greek word for Egypt is said to trace its roots to the temple of Ptah itself, meaning the dwelling of Ptah's spirit. During the 4th dynasty of the Old Kingdom, Memphis reached its absolute zenith. It was the command center of the ancient world, the workshop of Egypt's finest art and architecture. On the Giza Plateau, directly adjacent to Memphis, the pharaohs raised their world-shaking pyramids, including the Great Pyramid, Khafre's Pyramid, and the Great Sphinx. These enduring monuments remain the most recognized symbols of ancient Egyptian power. Memphis was also a cradle of artistic achievement. Within its workshops, craftsmen produced statues, reliefs, and stone carvings of stunning vitality. Whether adorning temple walls or filling the tomb chambers near the pyramid fields, every piece reflects Memphis at its most radiant. Though Memphis blazed brightest in the Old Kingdom, history's wheel never pauses for any single city. With the new kingdom's rise, Thebes gradually stripped away Memphis's political and religious supremacy. When Rome's power swept across Egypt, Alexandria took center stage, and Memphis slowly withdrew from history, becoming a sleeping ancient city. Most poignantly of all, its very stones were plundered to build other cities. Its glorious structures were dismantled piece by piece until only ruins remained. Memphis's ruins today lie 20 kilometers south of Cairo. The great city of the ancient world is no longer, but what endures in its stones still tells the story of Egypt's earliest glory. Memphis, together with the Giza pyramids, was inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, drawing millions of visitors every year, offering them a direct encounter with ancient civilization. From the vision of Menes, to the divine protection of Ptah, to the pyramids standing on the horizon, Memphis wrote one of humanity's most enduring chapters. And that brings us to the end of today's journey. 10 cities, 10 stories. Which of these ancient metropolises left the deepest mark on you? Tell us in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves history. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next time.